NCIS may have already set up Tony and Ziva's spin-off story, and it might have been overlooked. Due to the writer's strike, NCIS Season 21 was a brief 10-episode season, but it still managed to pack a punch. It delivered a tribute episode to David McCallum's Ducky and the 1000th episode of NCIS. With such epic milestones, one tiny detail was easy to overlook, but it could lead to another epic installment of the franchise, making NCIS Season 21 all the more significant. There was a moment in NCIS Season 21 that suggested there could be a promising connection between the flagship series and Paramount Plus' NCIS, Tony and Ziva. The Tony and Ziva pilot could even cross over to NCIS, returning the franchise's fan-favorite characters to where it all began while closing a critical unsolved NCIS case. The opportunity for a connection between the series barely announced itself, especially considering it occurred in one of the most bizarre NCIS episodes ever. The confusing elements could have been a way to distract viewers while the episode subtly set up Tony and Ziva's spin-off story. The attack on Tony's security firm could connect to the villain from NCIS Season 21, Episode 6. The villain from NCIS Season 21, Episode 6, Strange Invaders, is still at large. Reports about NCIS, Tony and Ziva have released many exciting details about the limited spin-off series. In its premiere, NCIS, Tony and Ziva will follow the agents as they run across Europe after an attack on Tony's security company from an unknown threat. The unknown threat could connect to another unknown threat from NCIS Season 21. In Episode 6, Strange Invaders, the Major Case Response Team, MCRT, had a series of paranormal encounters. A levitating killer murdered their victim with ammunition that had an extraterrestrial connection, and the alien tease almost broke the entire NCIS franchise. While the paranormal connection seemed inevitable at one point, the team ultimately traced the attacker to an artificially intelligent drone that could murder on its own. The head of an artificial intelligence company, Daniel Silkett, revealed to the team that he developed the AI program for a weapon manufacturer in Sri Lanka, but that was all he knew about the people he had once worked with, who ultimately stole his technology and used it to create a deadly next-generation war machine. NCIS MCRT never traced the manufacturer, but it could be whoever planned an attack on Tony's security firm. How Tony and Ziva could tie into the Season 22 storyline. Tony and Ziva could return in Season 22 to launch their series. Tony and Ziva could factor into the NCIS Season 22 story, since their series could share a mutual threat with the MCRT. Tony and Ziva could feature in NCIS Season 22 after the attack on his firm, reaching out to their old agency for any potential leads they have on their attacker. The teams could discover that they share a mutual threat, and therefore, Tony and Ziva could return to the bullpen to help the team investigate. Their return to Washington headquarters could be a potential temporary haven for them and their team before returning to Europe to investigate. Tony and Ziva appearing on NCIS could be a way to reestablish their characters before NCIS, Tony and Ziva debuts on Paramount Plus. Featuring Tony and Ziva would be a clever way to promote the offshoot, which will be the first to be on a streamer rather than air on CBS. Even if Tony and Ziva don't launch their series on NCIS, the agents could feature sometime in NCIS Season 22 before their spinoff as a way to bring back the fan-favorite characters in the mothership. If NCIS, Tony and Ziva connected to NCIS, it would officially bring the series premise full circle. In the grand scheme of things, NCIS, Tony and Ziva's title makes no sense after their official casting update. The Tony and Ziva series cast does not feature a single NCIS agent. Instead, it has international intelligence operatives. The casting is understandable since the series will take place overseas, where Tony and Ziva ultimately have settled down. However, branding the series with the NCIS acronym made less sense after establishing that Tony and Ziva would have no official ties to the agency. If Tony and Ziva's main villain is the same as in NCIS Season 21, NCIS, Tony and Ziva's premise will connect back to the flagship. Michael Weatherly appeared on NCIS before the spinoff, featuring alongside Jimmy in the Ducky tribute episode. Ziva reaching out to the Washington MCRT for help or offering it would be a great way to give Cote de Pablo the same connection. The NCIS Season 21 weapons manufacturer could be the ultimate villain in the spin-off series, since they pose a massive threat to international intelligence and security, ultimately bringing Tony and Ziva's premise full circle. In a subtle yet intriguing move, NCIS may have already laid the groundwork for a potential Tony DiNozzo and Ziva David spin-off, hidden within the threads of its ongoing narrative. Fans who have been closely following the show may have missed the breadcrumbs leading to this possibility, as they were woven seamlessly into the plot, blending into the backdrop of the team's latest adventures. The clues began to surface during the latest season, where subtle references to Tony and Ziva's life post-*NCIS* began to emerge. These hints were buried in conversations between current team members, fleeting mentions that at first seemed like mere fan service, but in retrospect, appear to be deliberate setup for something bigger. The most notable of these occurred when a former colleague of Ziva's, now working with the Mossad, reached out to the NCIS team with an urgent request. The case involved a high-stakes international incident, and although the team resolved the situation without Ziva's direct involvement, her name was repeatedly brought up as someone who was still very much connected to the world of international espionage. Tony's involvement was hinted at in a different way. A conversation between Gibbs and McGee revealed that Tony had been consulting on a few cases for NCIS Europe, where he had reconnected with former agents. His expertise in undercover work and his knack for sniffing out conspiracies were mentioned as critical to these operations, implying that Tony had never truly left the spy world behind, even while raising his daughter with Ziva. These mentions were casual enough to fly under the radar, but deliberate enough to suggest that the writers are setting the stage for Tony and Ziva's return to the spotlight. The combination of Ziva's ongoing ties to Mossad and Tony's involvement with NCIS Europe points to a narrative that could easily be expanded into a spin-off series focused on their post-*NCIS* adventures. This potential spin-off could explore the couple's dual lives, balancing their commitment to protecting the world with raising their daughter. It could offer a fresh perspective on the NCIS universe, diving into more international and covert operations, with Tony and Ziva navigating the complex world of espionage as a team. Whether these hints will culminate in a full-fledged spin-off remains to be seen, but the groundwork is certainly there, waiting to be explored.